Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jill Mackey and welcome to the last video of Bookmas. It's so crazy, it's over. I'm still in the process of recording and editing the video, so it feels like wild that I'm saying that, but genuinely, this is the last video, so let's just get into it. In today's vlog, I'm gonna be doing the 2024 book tag because people have been doing it through the years. I've never done it before, so this is so fun. And for context, I'm referring to Destiny Sidwell's questionnaire, so obviously go subscribe to her. She's like the queen of booktube. Her editing style is perfect. I feel like her and my book tastes are so similar that I go to her for every single recommendation, and so I had to make this video because she made it. And also, before we get into it, when I keep looking off to the side, I'm actually looking at my laptop to look at the questions and what book I pegged for it or whatever, so ignore that, but let's just get into it. First question is the most disappointing book of the year, and for me that is What Happened to the Bennets. Now I don't have a physical copy. I'm so happy I don't even want one on my shelf, I'll be honest, because it took 50% of the book to actually get into the main theme, and it basically follows this family. They're kind of forced out of the car on gunpoint and their daughter is killed, and so the first 50% of it is all grief and sadness over the daughter, and then the next 50% is basically pure action, your favorite thriller movie, and it's going crazy. There's stuff happening at every page, and so you can't put it down. But the build up it took to make it to the second half of the book, to get to the point where it's going crazy, was just not it for me. I had the second half putting a chokehold on me when I was reading it, but the first half was not worth it for me. I genuinely just was looking forward to getting it done with. It was 200 pages of literally nothing happening, and I wish it was cut down, or I wish it was reduced, because grief is important, don't get me wrong, but if the book is marketed as a thriller, I haven't really come for it in that place, and so that wasn't really the best book I read this year, and it was disappointing because I've seen so many great things about her and the author, but unfortunately I don't think I'll be reading anything more by her, and I didn't enjoy this book. Now for context, before you ask, yes, I'm filming this video 2 hours before I leave on that vacation I said I'm going, so everything is all over the place. If this outfit is the same in the next 4 videos you see, don't comment, don't say anything, pretend you never saw. Next question is, what was an underdog book for me? So basically by this I think it means that what was something that surprised you when you expected low out of it or something like that, or at least I looked up underdog before I came to record this video because I'm not really so sure. The only place I know underdog from is that One Direction song, so here we are. But anyway, the most underdog book for me was The Chemistry of Love. I don't have a copy. I don't know why I procrastinate on getting it. I have to get it because it's genuinely one of the best books I've read this year. It basically follows this girl Anna, and I remember the guy was called Marco, and she likes his brother. He's trying to set them up because the brother is with someone who is a gold digger trying to get at the family's money or whatever, except she falls for Marco in the end. Obviously, we all know that. And they actually run this cosmetics brand or a company or something like that, so in the meantime she's designing lipsticks and stuff, and also she lives with her grandparents and they've got birds, and if you don't already know, we have cockatiels at home, so that's kind of perfect. I was relating to every aspect of it. The romance was slow burn. It didn't happen until the last few chapters, and it got me so good because the build up to it and the banter was amazing, and I didn't expect that. Honestly, I just thought it would be a cute simple read to get into, but genuinely blew the water out of the park. Don't even know if that's the correct saying. And I've got more books to read by her now. It's so funny because this year she sent me her arc for the book that came out this year, and she also sent me the arc for the book that comes out next year, which is so nice because now that I've loved this book, I can get to those, and I will be on vacation literally this week, so I'm so excited and down to do that. Okay, so next up I have, what was the most overhyped book you've read this year? And so for this question, I'm gonna say A Coat of Thorns and Roses. Before anyone comes and attacks me, I love this book. I haven't stopped thinking about it since I read it, but genuinely it is the most overhyped book on the internet, because even when I was looking at my Goodreads year-end books when it came up, this was the book that was the most shelved, and I've read so far 117 books. So the fact that this, out of all of them, is the most shelved, and I read this back in January of the year, so that's kind of crazy to me, and it's worth it. I love it. Essentially, it follows Feyre. She kills this wolf, and as it turns out, the wolf was a fairy. So now the fairies are going to come. They're going to take her to their realm because she has to give her life down for the life she took, except it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Something's going wrong in their realm, and there's this magical curse or something that's happened that's kind of a blight on their lands. So they're trying to figure out what's going wrong. It's a fantasy, and the second book is the best one out of the series as far as I can tell, or at least what people are saying. I've started it, I can't wait to read it, and I am doing a vlog on it very soon, so keep your eyes out for that. But this was, I think, also the best book I've read this year, so obviously I had to put in this video. But it is also definitely overhyped, so I don't want to like discount that. It's just a really good book, don't get me wrong, but it is overhyped. Okay, next up we have a book that surprised you, and looking at this question, I'm really hoping I didn't mess up the underdog question because both of them feel the same to me. If I did, I'll like change that question up or something in editing. But the book that surprised me the most this year, and before anything I just want to say, I'm putting only one book for each question and all different ones that I wouldn't normally pick, because otherwise we all know what I'm going for. We all know that I would probably pick beach read for everything, and so I haven't even included in this vlog. But the most surprising book of this year for me was Begin Again. I was reading this as like a palate cleanser after I read the most emotional, deep, sad book I read this year. I cried my heart out to that, and so I just wanted like a little, fun. I wanted to be happy, and so I read this. But this was the best book, or one of the best books I've read this year. Basically, it follows Andy. Her mom has passed away, and so she actually, looks up to her as like a role model, and she goes to the college her mom went to, and there's all these like fun competitions that her mom used to take part in. So now she's doing it and trying to relive those footsteps. But also, all her plans of like love are getting disrupted at the same time, and so she's trying to figure out that. And then this guy Milo, who is like the love interest of the book, he makes his own coffee and stuff, like his blend, and then there's like all these other references that I found so cool. And this is the autumn book to read if you want to, because it's like taking place outside. They're going out and about at those competitions that she's taking part in, and I love the atmosphere of it. I love so much about it. Again, nothing really happens until like the last like 90% in terms of romance, but the banter and the tension and the build-up was so good. And I will say that's probably my favorite type, when it's like a slow burn. So this was also one of the best books I've read this year, and definitely surprised me because I didn't expect so much out of it. I just wanted something like a 3-star maybe to breeze through, and that seems so bad, but I just wanted something easy after I read the biggest and the saddest book I've read this year. Okay, next up we have my favorite book couples of the year. This award has to go to Anna and Liam from The Paradise Problem. I think that's like so obvious. I read this over like the summer, I believe, and it was because Gallery Books actually sent me an ARC. Now this I've purchased with my own money. They sent me one on Kindle, and listen, Christina Lauren are probably like my second or like first favorite author at this point. I don't even know, and I don't even care because they're the best. And the fact that I got their book, I got to read it before it came out, and got to enjoy it. It was amazing. But this book essentially follows them. They kind of got married for student housing, and as it turns out 5 years later, they haven't really separated. She didn't even know that. She thought it was over, but then he comes back into her life and she's at like a really low point, and he like offers her money to come and like pretend to be his wife at this like family function so that he gets his inheritance. And it goes crazy from there because like the side characters, it's crazy, it's so funny. They are this like mega rich, huge like private island or something like that, so the stakes are like higher because they're all so freaking wealthy. And I can't wait to reread this book. I'm also carrying it with me right now on vacation because I read this the first time around over there, and I can't wait to read it physically now. Maybe annotate, I'm not so sure, but it's like one of the best books I've read this year. I know I gave like 4.75 stars at the beginning, but I feel like it might get up to a 5 now when I reread, because there's so many scenes I remember so vividly, and it's genuinely one of the best book couples ever. Okay, so the next one is your favorite main character of the year, and this has to, there's no debating. As soon as I saw the question, I was like, there's only one person I can think of. It's Safi from Bad Men. Again, this was also a book that was like sent to me as an ARC, but I had to get the physical because it was just that good. Basically, it follows Safi. She's like a socialite. Her family is like really wealthy. She's like, perfect in every sense. She's really rich, so she doesn't really have to work. And so she's like the ideal type of like perfect woman or something you'd find in society, except she's not, because she has this thing wherein she goes and kills bad men. So she's a serial killer. Anyone who's like bad or does something wrong, she's gonna go murder them. And so basically it follows her throughout the book trying to figure that out. There's also like a true crime podcast involved, and I was actually sent this on audio. So listening to it on audio was so nice because it was one of the best audiobooks I've heard this year, and now I have a physical to go back and reread, which is perfect. It also had like plot twists till the last page. I believe the last page, like the ending, it ended on such a wild note, something I could have never guessed. And so it's also one of the best books I've read this year. I keep saying that for every book, but it genuinely is. And she as a character was so feminist women power, and I just really enjoyed that. I really loved it, and I loved her sarcasm especially because it was so funny. The way she'd like speak about people but like actually behave in society was like great. And so definitely my favorite character of the year. The next question is new favorite author you discovered this year, and for me that is Annabelle Monaghan, I'm not really sure, but I'm not gonna describe this book because it's more about the author. It's just her writing style. She writes so perfectly exactly what she's trying to say. The way she writes human emotion, she writes every single word exactly the way she has to. She doesn't add like excess to it, and I think it's so beautiful the way she does it. I do believe I read like a different book by her, not this one, like a different one too. I've read this one too though. This was like a 4.5, that was a 3, but even the quotes in that one, even though I didn't like enjoy the book so much, was great. And I actually have one saved on my phone, so I'm gonna have it on screen. And it's so amazing that I can still remember bits of it, and like I can't wait to reread this now because my sister got it for me for Christmas. Did I absolutely ask her to give it to me so I could like film it in the video and then give it back and then have it back on Christmas? Yes, I did, but that just shows how much I love this, and I love Annabelle Monaghan, and I can't wait to like read her release of this year and the one that comes out in next year because they sound so interesting, the concepts. And I love me some Annabelle Monaghan. An author that did not work out for me this year, I think this has to go to Rebecca Surley, I believe. And she has like magical realism in her books, but every single one of her books I've read so far, and I've read only 2, has this one trope I hate so much. Every time it hits, I'm just like, there was no point of adding it to the plot. There was no reason to add it in there, but it's always there. And that always makes me hate on a book because any time that plot comes up in a book, that book is an instant no 2 stars for me, and 2 is my lowest on the scale. So I'm just saying, I don't want to like spend this whole video like hate talking about it, but there are scenes I remember from both books I've read of hers that I absolutely despise. And if you want more thoughts, I have both books in like different videos, so I'm gonna have it on screen. But like, these were the worst books I've read this year, and so she's definitely not an author for me, unfortunately. If she's your favorite, I'm so sorry, but like, it wasn't for me. What is the happiest book you read this year? This has to go to Honey and Spice. I read it, I feel like a few months ago in the same vlog where I read this one, and so I read them together. I read them like back to back or something like that, and that was genuinely one of the best weeks of my life. It basically follows this girl. I believe she has like some sort of like podcast or something she runs for the school, and there's not much I remember from the book. It's just I remember the vibes so clearly, and I remember the time I had reading it because it was so funny. Again, she was like Sapphy from Bad Men, wherein she was sarcastic and she would like talk mean stuff about people like in her head, but she seemed to like be the perfect person on the outside, and it was so funny to read about, to me at least. And it was one of the best books I've read this year. The way I felt while reading it was so happy, and I can't wait to get myself a physical because the cover is so cute. Now for the saddest book I read this year. This is the one I read before Begin Again, and that's why I picked up Begin Again so I could get like a break. But it's Second Chance Summer. If you haven't read it, go read it and get yourself a box of tissues because this was the saddest book I've ever read. The main girl in this, her father has cancer, and so he's been diagnosed by the doctors that he's gonna like pass away in 3 months. So they go to visit their like summer cabin or something like that, and while they're there, she's trying to spend like her last moments with him, and so it's very emotional on that side. But then there's other stuff happening in the book, and life and moving on and grief, and I feel like that was portrayed so well in the book. The last like maybe easy 100 pages, because I was listening on audio before I bought myself the physical, I was crying non-stop because it was that sad and it hit me so hard. And I don't know if I'll ever reread this again in my life because I keep saying I will, but the way it impacted me, like I wasn't doing so great that entire week that I read it, and not the best feeling, but also it hit me so hard. And it takes a lot for like a book to pull that much of like an emotional impact out of me that I'm crying for 100 pages straight. So this was definitely the saddest book I've read this year, but I will still recommend it because it's also, I feel like, one of the best books I've read this year. The most frustrating book you read this year. Now I have 2 on this list. One is Tell Me Lies because it's frustrating in the worst way possible, and the second one is First Lie Wins, which is frustrating in the best way possible. And it's so funny looking at it now, I just realized both of them have lie in the title, so that makes a lot of sense. Now I believe Tell Me Lies is a show, and I was gonna have it originally the book in a video, but I don't know what happened to the clips of that, so it's never coming out. But it was one of the most realistic, but like at the same time the worst book I've read, because it was so hard-hitting in the sense that yeah, it's realistic and yeah, it's sad, but at the same time I didn't want to read about it because I read for escapism, not to feel sad. And while Second Chance Summer made me feel sad, it isn't the kind of sad I don't want to feel. This is the kind of sad where it is depressed, gloomy, dreary. I don't want it. And then First Lie Wins is the frustrating, good kind of type, because there's this girl, and she, I think her name is like Evie Potter. She has the perfect life, except she doesn't exist because Evie Potter is like this code name she has. She's like a spy agent agent or something like that, and she works for like a bigger company or whatever, and as it turns out, her boss is hiding secrets from her. So one time she messes up on like a job, and she's actually sent like another woman who looks just like her, completely identical, with her real name. So her name is not Evie Porter, her name is something else, and the woman comes with that name. She's taken over her identity, and so that's like a threat from the boss. She needs to figure out what happens next, and it's so crazy because every chapter something crazy happened. I have like a whole vlog of me reading it and going wild over this book because it was one of the best mystery thrillers I've read this year, and I would recommend it to everyone. I do believe it also got like nominated for like the Goodreads Choice Awards, but I don't know if it won or not. But even if it did or didn't, genuinely one of the best books ever, especially in terms of mystery thriller, because the plot twists were like really getting me, and I know a lot of people don't like it, but it really got me. I don't know what that says about me, if I'm like dumb or if I just don't agree with people, but it was really good and you should check it out. Best book adaptation of the year, this has to go to Maxton Hall. I watched the series over the summer. I didn't actually know it was a book until I watched it, and now there will be vlogs coming out very soon of me reading the entire series. Keep in mind I haven't finished it, but the way this made me feel, now I don't know if it's necessary for me to give you like a book adaptation I've already like read and then watched, because I don't think I read any and then watched it this year, but this was something that I watched and then went back to read and loved it so much. There's like a video coming on it. One of the best things I've ever watched, and if you haven't already, please go see it because it was so fun, and it was one of the most light-hearted like fun things I've watched, but also stakes were high. It was great to watch. It's something, you know, you'll watch if you have time to kill, but you want to watch something actually nice rather than some trash TV. My favorite covers of the year. So for this, I actually chose two books. I chose the Pumpkin Spice Cafe series. I read this in a recent video, and I was contemplating getting the physicals, but you know, it wasn't worth it to me in the end because it wasn't that great of a book. It's just the covers are so stunning. The first one is like fall coded. I'm gonna read the second one soon, but I believe it's summer coded, so I don't know if I'm in the mood right now because it's winter, but like the covers are so cute, and you know, that was like the main attraction point to me, especially because the ones in my hometown have like gold embellishings on it, and that's beautiful. And then another one I chose is When the Moon Hatched. I haven't actually read this yet, but my sister got it for me for my birthday, and I wasn't really sure if I have to just include books I've read or not. So I had to show this because look at the cover, it is stunning. Maybe the main reason why I asked for it on my birthday, but also the plot sounds interesting and I can't wait to get to it. It's so huge, and Goodreads, the American one, it says it's 800 pages long, so kind of crazy for a fantasy. I believe this also has a glossary, so I'm not really sure when I'll get to it, but hopefully soon. A book you haven't stopped thinking about? Before I show you what book it is, keep in context, I am not recommending this or asking you to buy it in any way or form, because this is not the kind of book I want to, you know, ask people to read, but also it is the kind of book I will ask, you know, women in my life to read, and I will suggest them to read. I won't, you know, compel them to read it in any sense. This is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. Haven't stopped thinking about it since the day I read it. It goes wild and crazy. I've spoken about it in like maybe 5 videos for now, but like I wouldn't ask anyone to read it because it's so dense and traumatic, and you have to look up trigger warnings before you read it because it's so packed and full of them, and it's sad. Basically, there's this woman, Claire. Something happens and her husband is like killed, and now in the past she actually had a sister who was also killed, who was like, you know, kidnapped and murdered as they think, but the body was never found, so it's not confirmed. And then now in recent times, after the husband like is gone or whatever, so this is modern day, there's also like a bunch of like kidnappings or something happening like that in the moment. So there's this girl, I think her name was Anna Kilpatrick. She went missing, and it was in the same sense that this girl, the main girl, Claire, her elder sister went missing when she was younger. So Julia and Anna, the cases look very similar, and Claire is now starting to wonder if there's some sort of connection all these years later. And it's so crazy and wild because this is the kind of book wherein every chapter you read, it feels like peeling off like a layer of skin. That's the weirdest comparison I can give, but that's what it feels like, because every single point of this book reveals something to you, and you're just like, can it go any deeper, and can it get any worse? And yes, it can, because till the end of the book, something crazy happens every time, something wild, and you're like, no way that happened. And you know, the worst possible thing happens, but like it just keeps going on and on and on, and you're just wondering what kind of psychopaths live in human society among us. It's kind of scary, and I was very afraid of all the men in my vicinity after I finished this book. So not a good feeling, but it's something I haven't stopped thinking about. And again, I don't know if I'll ever reread, but it's definitely something I wanted to own, so I got it. Unpopular book you loved. So for this, I'm gonna have to say the Prison Healer trilogy. This is not unpopular in any sense. It's very popular in fact, but the mass majority of people who read it don't actually enjoy it, and I understand why. I see the criticism, mechanisms. It follows this girl Kiva. She's in prison. The jail she is in is called Zalindif, and if you get in, they like mark you with their symbol because you can never walk out alive. And the thing is, someone comes in, she's the rebel queen, and she's like on her deathbed, and Kiva is like the head of the hospital, so she has to save her. Except while she's trying to save the rebel queen is being punished for her treason against the crown by trying to go through these like trials. So she has trial by wind, air, earth and water, and basically the rebel queen is too like almost on her deathbed to kind of do these trials. She's not alive, and so Kiva feels bad and she takes it upon herself to take the trials for the queen, and if she wins, she and the queen can both like get their freedom and leave. But if she doesn't, both of them have to be executed or like die in the trial or whatever. And it's so crazy because it gets really wild. The endings of the book especially are so crazy because they end on the cliffhanger on the very last page, and that's very crazy to me. Now again, I don't know why, but I never actually guessed any of the plot twists in it, maybe like a couple, but the whole series in general, especially the last book, was so worth it and good to me. And if you love Found Family, this is definitely a book you can check out. But I know a lot of people don't like it because they think it's slow and the plot twists are predictable, which, you know, in some sense it is, but like it's a good fun all time and I enjoy reading it. Book you thought you'd love but you didn't, The Notebook. I'm just gonna stop there because I have a whole video talking about how much I hated it. Again, it has a trope in it that was there in the Rebecca Surley books, which is why I didn't like it in the first place. And that's so crazy because like I thought, you know, I'm gonna read it and then I'm gonna watch the adaptation because people, you know, giggle and go on about it. But as it turns out, I think I never will because I hated it so much. And I'm just gonna end it right there. Book with the most unique concept you've ever heard of. I'm gonna have to say The Book of Doors. Essentially, there's this girl Cassie. She's working late at her bookshop one night, and there's this old man who passes away in the first chapter on her watch. So he kind of leaves her behind this book, and when she opens it, it says, this is the Book of Doors. It can take you anywhere. Any door is any door or whatever. And inside the book, there's all these drawings of doors. And if she holds the book and she pictures anywhere, she can actually walk through a door to whatever she pictured. So when she goes back home to her roommate, she actually pictures like a street in Italy or something like that. And she and her roommate, I think her roommate was Izzy, they're like best friends. They actually end up walking from their apartment through the door to Italy and back. And so they're experimenting with the book. They're going crazy with it. Except as it turns out, there's more books like this. So there's the Book of Sadness, there's the Book of Pain, and as it turns out, there are also book hunters who collect these books. And the Book of Doors is one of like the most like top high category books, because if you get that, you can get access to all the other books. And so it's also very dangerous in the sense that if it falls in the wrong hands, game over. So they don't really know what kind of high stakes trouble they're in, except there's like the librarian who collects books and he kind of needs to get the book from them. And it goes so wild because I just explained like maybe only the first like couple of chapters to you, but then it's so much crazier than that. And this was also a 5-star read of the year for me. I loved every second of it. It flew by and I wish there was more. I wish there's, you know, like a whole series coming after this because I need so much more, but it was such a great book. And the concept is so interesting that she can just walk through doors through a book. Like, isn't that amazing? A book you read this year that you would reread? Already, I want to say A Christmas Carol for this because I reread this year, but I don't know if it really counts. So I'm just showing it that I would reread again, but this is not the official book. The official one is this book called Elsewhere. There's a girl, she's 15. She wants to turn 16 because she can do all these things like drive and, you know, go to prom or whatever when she turns 16. So she's excited and she goes prom dress shopping, but, you know, when she's crossing the road, a car hits her, she dies. Except after she's dead, she goes to this place called Elsewhere, which is not heaven or hell, it's just somewhere elsewhere. When you go there, you start aging backward. So on Earth, you're aging from, you know, 0 to whatever age you get to. On Elsewhere, whatever age you died at. So she's dead at 15. She starts aging backward. So the next year she turns 14 and so on until, you know, she's a kid again and she can return to Earth. And so it's very interesting, the concept, but really the book tore me apart. I cried every single minute. It's also one of the saddest books I read, but not as sad as the other one. And so very heart-wrenching and emotional if you want to read something like that. But also it's something I definitely reread over and over again because I have like one little bit specifically taken like a photo of from the book because I had borrowed this from the library. So I'll put the photos on the screen. But it's so crazy and wild the kind of teachings this book has, even though it's not supposed to be like that. And so, you know, I love Gabrielle Zevin for even creating this book. It's amazing and I would love to reread it at least every single year because it's just the perfect book to do that. Goodreads 2024 reading goal reflection and then what my goals are for 2025. I'm just gonna say I wanted to get through my physical TBR as much as I could. All I did really was add on to this year, bought so many more books. So again, 2025, hopefully I'm getting through the TBR because that's what I need to be doing like ASAP immediately and I really need to shrink it down. Book you wish you got to this year. So like I said, I read read Actor at the beginning of the year, so I definitely wish I got to this one. This is the second one in the series, but I didn't have the time and it's bigger. It's definitely, gonna happen in like January of next year. There's a vlog coming, but I wish I got to it this year because this is like the most hyped up book in my head for me. I already know this is gonna be like 5 stars. The author is probably my favorite author in the entire world, and it's crazy because I've read only one book, and I wish I got to it, but I didn't. But it's fine, we'll get to it soon. Powerless, because this is so hyped up. I keep seeing it everywhere, and I believe the last book is coming out next year sometime as well. So it'll be perfect if I read it like sometime now and read the second like novella or whatever that is, and then the one that's out this year, and so I could finish the series. But I've heard so many great things. I can't wait to get to it. Wish I got to it this year, but it's fine. I'll put it off until next year maybe. This is the one I truly regret not getting to this year. It's Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, because I feel like I'm the last person to have read it at this point. Everyone and their grandma has read it. It's gone viral on TikTok, I feel like a couple years ago at this point, and I wish I had gotten to it. It's got dragons and fantasy, and I'm getting in my fantasy era now, so I think it will be like perfect for me. But regardless, I can't wait to get to it next year. What will you prioritize as your like reading goal? Only something like that in 2025. And so for that, I want to read more fantasy or new genres, like I said, because I haven't really read so much, and then this year towards the end of it, I've been getting into fantasy lately, and I feel like that's the best genre out there. It's my favorite. Harry Potter is something I read growing up like all the time, like a bajillion times, and that's the only fantasy I've read, so getting more exposure now is really fun. And I also want to try out new genres while I'm at it, because I have been stereotyping fantasy in my head as something people are just riding horses on, and like yeah, that happens sometimes, but the way it's done is so fun. And I want to get out of my comfort zone, read some more, because I'm finding so many more fun books that I wouldn't have ever gotten to otherwise. And I also have like a reading journal I want to maintain. This is kind of bookish, but at the same time it's like more crafty, because I actually had one this year, didn't really get around to filling it up all the way through. I think I quit mid-year, and that's because I didn't even like have it set up from the beginning of the year. So I'm hoping if I have it set up from like Jan the 1st, it should work out in my favor, because if that happens, then I'm ready from the first day of the year. It feels like a brand new fresh start, and that'll be perfect, because that's what I'm doing right now. And it's gonna be a Bookmas vlog as well. But that's it, we've reached the end of the questions. There were so many. I feel like I've been yapping for so long, so I'm gonna go get a drink of water after I'm done, because I'm like so thirsty. But that's it for today's video. I hope you guys had a fun time coming along with me, looking at my 2024 book tag. If you guys want to try it out, I'll leave the questions in the description box so you guys can put your answers in the comments. And again, thank you to Destiny for the questions. This is also the last video for Bookmas, so it's so crazy, but we've reached the end. I hope you guys enjoyed coming along with me for Bookmas as well. But that's it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed watching, like, comment, share, subscribe. YouTube things. And I'll see you guys hopefully very soon. I don't know if the next video is in the new year or I'm putting one more out this year, but regardless, I'll see you. Bye!